Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 7. Episode 7 of StadiaCast. This is your source for all things Google Stadia. If you want to know how to stream video games, this is the place to come. We record this live over at youtube.com/StadiaCast. I'm Bill. That's Lloyd. Lloyd, what is going on today, man?
Not much, man. It's been a crazy week from heck, and I am definitely waiting to talk some Stadia to kind of reset my mind and get into kind of like the good space again because it's been a little bit crazy.
And yeah, I'll tell you what, it's about to get pretty real crazy with as far as StadiaCast goes because Google I/O is coming out on Tuesday. Do
Hmm.
you have any predictions for what they're going to like? Do you think we'll get a price? Do you think we'll get anything like that?
I don't know. I've been flip flopping back and forth on that. At first I was like, yeah, of course we're gonna get the price. Blah blah blah. That's gonna make total sense. But I think they're gonna wait on the pricing till E3. But I think we're gonna get a little bit more info about the service. But also we'll probably get some more game announcements. We'll get some developers on stage from like the Activision or the EA or whatever to say, yeah, we're bringing FIFA to Stadia, and here it is running. Blah blah blah, kind of like what they do. They do like the developer dog and pony show, bring them out to talk about things. I could see that definitely happening at this event.
Yeah, especially because Google I/O, I mean, it's not GDC, but it is certainly more of a developer-centered conference than it is what's the word I'm looking for? A consumer level conference. So
That's right.
this is definitely something where if if they bring out, and actually before we, our main topic today is about Macs and Stadia and how that can help them, but I want to skip over that real quick because you brought up
Sure.
Activision and Bobby Kotick, or Kotick, I don't know how to say his last name. He's the head cheese over at Activision, and he was interviewed and he was talking about how they are poised to jump on the bandwagon. And before we get to his exact quotes, I can see something like they bring out a big developer like Activision or EA or Ubisoft, somebody huge, to say, look, these are the game. Well, maybe not Ubisoft because we already know about Ubisoft, and they don't want to keep bringing out Ubisoft. But um, look, these are things that we're doing, and not only is Stadia like the real deal, having it come from somebody other than Google and somebody other than Ubisoft, uh, have one of these companies say this is the real deal, and we're porting our games to Stadia to try and convince all these other developers, oh, maybe we should buy in too. I mean, if Activision's buying in, then maybe we should buy in. You think that we're gonna see something like that then?
I definitely think so. I think that that would make the most sense for that conference because it's not. I mean, it's consumer facing because they have the keynote, but it's Google's own developer conference. So it's get everybody there to talk about developing on all the Google platforms. So I think having one or two big developers out and then maybe some indie stuff happening makes the most sense. And the more consumer price, service, rollout, locations, all that stuff would probably make a little bit more sense for the E3 press conference.
Yeah, I went through the interview with Bobby. Do you know, is it Kotick or Kotick?
I think it's Kodak.
Okay, I went through the interview with Bobby. Now I'm saying Bobby with Bobby Kotick, and I was reading and I pulled out three quotes that I thought were important. The first one is he said, "When these big, well-funded companies are building out platforms where they have limited amounts of content to actually serve up to customers, I'd say there's a great opportunity for a company like ours." What do you take from that?
I think he realizes that while Google is kind of like the big dog when it comes to internet services, they're not the big dog when it comes to IP, and that they're bringing out this amazing platform, but this amazing platform won't have games unless people like Activision step up and start bringing stuff over. So I'm really curious what kind of splash this is going to make at launch. Is it going to be like every like last gen and current gen Activision game is going to be streaming on day one, like kind of what what Activision is planning for Stadia, because essentially, if you're taking an older game or a newer game, if you are using the right frameworks, you can port to Stadia pretty easily. Then, of course, there's like the tune up and all that stuff that you have to do. So maybe it'll be a pretty easy port process for them, and they can just get it out there running and have that play button on all these YouTube videos.
Yeah, well, okay. You think that, I mean, World of Warcraft is, I don't know if I could say it's easily their biggest, because they
Hmm.
have things like, but they, is Activision Call of Duty, or is
Yeah.
that, yeah, okay. They have Call of Duty, which is huge. I've never played one. Um, well, that's not true. I played like the really, really, really old ones a million years ago, but none of the modern ones. I've not played any of those. But
Sure.
for I think a significant portion of the player base, World of Warcraft is probably Activision's biggest hit, and
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure that they don't do that in any of the third party engines. I think that Blizzard does all that stuff with their in house stuff, so things like that won't be an easy port.
And things like that will be a tougher port because the servers are being run by Activision. They're not being run like there's servers that exist there. So those won't be, I don't think, moved over to Stadia, but they could potentially make a World of Warcraft client that would run in Stadia. So it would be a WoW Stadia client that connects you to your WoW account on servers that Activision is running. And then essentially you would have your setup, you'd have all your plugins, you'd have all your graphical stuff wherever you play the game, and you could fire it up in any web browser, and that would be an amazing way to do it because you could finally play World of Warcraft on your phone and connect to it that way. That would be fantastic.
What about Overwatch? Is Overwatch a is that a third party
I'm not
engine?
sure what. Yeah, I'm not sure what Blizzard uses for any of their engines. I think most of their stuff is in house. I would
Yeah.
think, but yeah, I'm not positive on that. But Activision has like many other development studios besides Blizzard, which is kind of like this weird one-off special child that kind of sits there and just makes amazing magic. They have what is it? Infinity Ward, Treyarch. I can't think of the other studios that work on other games for them. But yeah, Call of Duty, well, Destiny, which isn't theirs anymore. There's a whole bunch of games that come from Activision, which would totally make sense on Stadia. Like you could have their battle royale game could come to Stadia, and now it's like 500 people on the map because all the server stuff is being, or all the client data is being handled by the server. So the server knows where every single person is, and there's very little data that has to be sent back to the end user. I could see maybe something like that happen where this crazy battle royale comes out and it just takes what they currently have and just cranks it up to 11.
So what's their battle royale?
It's part of the latest Black Ops.
Oh, that's right.
I can't remember what they call it because I've never played it. But yeah, it was kind of like an add-on mode for that's like blackout mode, I think is what they called it, something
I
like
think
that.
you're right.
Yeah, I can't remember what the name of it is, but yeah, they could amp that up to 11 and bring that out and wow everybody. But everybody will then just go back to Fortnite after a couple weeks anyway.
He also said none of these platforms. He's talking about um, Google Stadia and Microsoft XCloud, or uh, PS PlayStation Go now, now go. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Whatever it's called. He says none of these platforms can succeed without great content. Truthfully, they really don't know how to make it. So when you think about what will be required, it will be support from us publishers to allow them to actually build an audience. We have a better audience than most to capitalize on these new platforms. From this, I, I don't like what he says here that they don't know how to make it. Google Stadia has Jade Raymond. They've got oh god, now the main guys, Phil Harrison. Uh,
Mhm.
these guys, they've worked in this industry for a very long time. They know how to make content. That I don't think that's going to be an issue. Now, do they have a bunch of content already? Probably not. They if they want to hit the ground running, they are going to need third parties. But I don't think that it's quite fair for anybody to say that either Google or Microsoft don't know how to make content, because I believe that they do. They just haven't been doing it or they don't have the IPs sitting there. And I will say this, the idea of a company that doesn't have previous IPs is very interesting to me, because everything's going to be new. Like it's not going to be sequel and sequel and sequel, which of course we all scream for. We're like, we want the next whatever, and then they ship us something that's brand new, and we all complain about it. And by we all, I mean the internet. Um,
Yeah.
I look forward to having a company that doesn't have a huge backlog of intellectual property to lean on, that they can say, okay, well, we're going to make brand new stuff. I think that that's pretty exciting. What do you think of this quote?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just him pumping Activision's tires, saying, "Oh, only us here at Activision can produce the quality software that people want to play on their next gaming platform." It's just kind of the posturing that all these big, huge Uber studios do, where they really know what the future is and they have their eyes set on it. I think it's mainly just that. I like you don't have to make your own content to be a platform holder. Activision isn't a platform holder; they just make content. So obviously, Sony and Nintendo are doing pretty good without Activision really being there, doing all the stuff. They're able to make their own games. Google is just starting out, but they have some great talent. We know about a couple big hires, but we don't know about all the other people. There's been so many game studio layoffs over the last little bit, and you hear about all these like 300 people get laid off from this studio and 100 people from this studio, and then you don't really hear about them after. So I wonder how many of those people got picked up by different Google-based development studios and are working on something awesome for the Stadia rollout. But we'll have to see. It's a new platform. There's going to be a game drought, just like there is on every platform. But I don't think Activision is the white knight that's going to come in and save things.
I totally agree. I don't think that they're the white knight. I am looking forward to hopefully Blizzard stuff being. I like the idea of being able to hook a mouse up to Chromebook and play Heroes of the Storm,
Hmm.
wherever. Like that's a fantastic game. It's free, and it's kind of falling out of favor because of some decisions that have been made. Maybe if it is accessible to a lot more people, it'll get a bigger audience, and they'll
Sure.
put more resources behind it. But I I think that, I don't know. I Outside of the Blizzard stuff, I couldn't tell you the last time I played a game made by Activision. I couldn't tell
Mm,
you what most Activision titles are outside of Call of Duty, only because I know that it's really popular. Like, they're
yeah.
outside of my wheelhouse. Are you an Activision fan? Do you play many of
Um,
their games?
I don't play many of their shooters. I played a lot of Destiny 1 when it came out, which now Destiny is not owned by Activision. They 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 basically just gave the keys back to the owners. So then any more Destiny content is going to be not from Activision. I used to play a lot of Skylanders back in the days with the kids.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Crash Bandicoot came out recently, which was okay, but Crash Bandicoot Racing is going to be coming out, so I'm sure I'll be picking that up to play with the kids as well. But really, that is it. Like, I'm not a huge Call of Duty fan, and well, Activision publishes a lot of titles, like big titles, little titles. I haven't really played much of their stuff since maybe like Guitar Hero, Guitar Hero, and Skylanders would have probably been the most Activision-y kind of titles that I've played recently.
You bring up Guitar Hero, and I don't think that I hope that the plastic instrument craze
Hmm.
is well behind us, but I don't with the timing being so important with a game like Guitar Hero or Rock Band or
Right.
Beat Saber or anything like that. Do you think that that kind of game, those rhythm games, have a chance at all on Stadia?
Probably not at launch. They're gonna have to make sure that they have like lag predictors, and they have ways to tune kind of your latency. Most of the modern like if you play Parappa the Rappa now on a modern TV, it's impossible to play because it's meant for CRTs and basically zero latency. LCDs or plasma or OLEDs, they all have a little bit of delay, even in video game mode. So playing that game on modern TVs just doesn't work. But pretty much every Guitar Hero and Rock Band game, there's a way to like I don't know, set up your lag. I guess I can't remember what they called it, but you kind of tune the game to your
All
setup. So
right.
they could always do something like that with an online rhythm game. But I think rhythm games are just so passe now. Like they tried to bring them back and it didn't really work. So I think it might be a little while before that happens. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I love playing like Guitar Hero and Rock Band. Like that's still fun to go back to and play that old stuff. Whether you're going to be playing in Stadia, I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. Yeah, the lag predictor thing, that's actually it, when you first said it, I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. But now that I'm thinking about it, um this isn't a thing where they have to say, okay, well, the player can go and do anything at any time. This is, we know when the player is going to do roughly the thing that they're supposed to do. There's only one
Mhm.
button input that makes sense at this point. So if they hit that, and even if it's like if they go through and every button press is 10 milliseconds late, then they just move everything over 10 milliseconds and you are playing the game. So I do think that they can play those now that I think about it on that or on Stadia. But I
Yeah.
personally hope that they don't come back because, well, no, you know what? I'm being selfish there. I have no
Mhm.
interest in more plastic crap in my house. So
Right.
I won't be buying any of those. But I hope that they do make a comeback so that people who love those kind of games can play them without having to spend money on a console. Because, back in the day that, like, the heyday of those rhythm games, that was like there was a big expense up front to play something like that if you didn't already play video games. And that's the
Right.
kind of game that a lot of people like glommed onto and said, "Oh, this is awesome." Like there were people out there um who bought a video game system for only one thing and one thing alone, and that was either Rock Band or Guitar Hero.
Definitely. Yeah. And that happens with a lot of games like Madden and a lot of different franchises like that, which always kind of makes me scratch my head. It's like you own the thing. Why don't you play more things on the thing? You already have the thing. But yeah, that's the way it is. But now you don't need to buy the thing. It just you buy the game and you play it in the cloud.
I can't really say anything about it because I owned a PC and I played nothing but World of Warcraft for about 7 years straight. So I have to stay. I can't judge people based on that. All right. Before we get to the rest of the news, let's hit our main topic today, which is
It,
I I'm a Mac guy, or well, I used to be a Mac guy. I like Apple stuff. I've got an iPhone, I've got an iPad, I've got an Apple Watch. I like Apple stuff. For years, I only had a Mac and I didn't have a PC. I had a PC for a very long time and then I switched over to a Mac. It was funny. I was in college and they had I went to the computer lab to do something and they had a Mac there and I sat down and was using it. I was like, "Wow, this is really good. I like this UI. I like how this computer works. I like it a lot." And then when it came time to upgrade, I said, they just switched over to having Intel CPUs, so I can dual boot Windows on here if I want to. And that
right.
was the only reason that I use Windows is for video games. That's the singular reason that I use Windows is so that I can play games. And I bought a Mac. I did the dual boot thing where I would use Boot Camp to switch over to Windows in order to play the games that weren't available on Mac. And it worked, but it was kind of a nightmare. Like the drivers were never quite good enough, and things didn't quite
Mhm.
work the way you expected. Um, so eventually, after years and years, I said, "Oh, I'm going to go back to Windows just because it just makes things easier for my main purpose of using a computer, which is video games." I think that I'm correct in saying you're also a Mac guy.
Yeah, I've been a Mac guy for a very long time. I was a PC guy. I had like 5 PCs in my house forever, playing games, setting up LANs, doing all that fun stuff. And then I started working at the university that I work at, and I started in the bookstore selling computers, and that's when the iMac was new, and the eMac and a MacBook and all these things. And I'm just like, you know what? I don't have to come home and reinstall Windows once every week if I buy this device. So I picked up a Mac and we started making music and then podcasting, and I still have a whole pile of Macs in this house, but to do my streaming and my podcasting stuff, all the software seemed to be going towards the PC. So now I run a beefy PC, which I pretty much only use for the streaming and the podcasting, and that's it. And it just kind of sits there with multiple screens, looking lonely when I'm not doing that stuff.
Is and I think that this is not a solitary experience. I think that there's a lot of people out there who, like you and I, prefer to use a Mac over a PC. And I don't want to get into the Coca-Cola versus Pepsi wars here. I
Sure.
think that both systems can accomplish most things pretty much equally, with the exception of video games. Eh,
Correct.
Like, and yes, I know that there's going to be people who say, I play games on the Mac all the time, and that's fine. But the number of games that you have access to is severely limited on the Mac. And if you're okay with that, that's fine. So don't send us angry messages. Send
Mhm.
us pictures of unicorns or something instead. Um, we both like Mac stuff, and I haven't used a Mac in years because of video games. And now there might be a chance that a Mac might be in my future, because with Google Stadia, I'll be able to play if Google Stadia picks up the way that I believe that it will. I'll be able to play pretty much anything I want on my Mac, and it's going to run just like it would on the PC, and just like it would on the Chromebook, and just like it would on my phone. And I feel like gaming on a Mac will be less, and don't be mad at me, people, but it'll be less of a joke than it is right now. And this is coming from somebody who has experienced gaming on a Mac for a very long time. What do
Yeah.
you think, Lloyd?
Yeah, I fully agree. I used to play a fair bit of games on my Mac. We would have people come over. We all had MacBooks, and we would play Diablo 2. And that was kind of the extent of gaming on a Mac. And then I played a lot of World of Warcraft, and I used the Mac client for that. But I also played other online games, and they didn't have Mac clients, all of them. So I'd have to dual boot and do that garbage, and it was never fun. And you turn on your computer and it's like, oh crap, I'm in Windows mode. I got to restart into Mac mode so I can actually do my podcast. It was hell, and I just stopped looking for it. I know the Mac App Store is a thing, and you can buy a lot of the games that are out on other platforms eventually on the Mac, but they come out 2 months later, and they come out at full price when you could pick them up for a bargain on the other platforms. And it's not a fun process. But now I have a MacBook Pro. I could essentially play every single game that comes out on that device now, moving forward with Stadia. And the hardware's great. I use it for all my work. I use it for software for video editing and audio editing and all that stuff. Photoshop, all the video editing programs, all that stuff is already living on my Mac. And then now I can play games on it, which makes me very happy because then I don't have to always come down and use my big PC to do that thing that I want to do when I'm already just sitting there on my laptop anyway. So I'm really excited for the prospect of using my Mac primarily as my Google Stadia device, just because I'm always on it already, and it would totally make sense to play games through that device as well.
Right. And I think it's good. You go to colleges, and as you look around, you see a sea of Apple logos. There are
Mhm.
a lot of people who buy a Mac laptop as their computer for college, and
Mm.
they're in college, they're in the dorms, they don't have room to also most of them don't have room to also have a gaming PC.
Yeah.
So it really benefits companies like Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo, because then they might have a video game system or a console instead, and because of that, they're not PC gamers, or they're not playing games on PC. And I feel like this could really expand the gaming market for a certain kind of games that don't get played because they're not available on on console very much. Games like that are heavily keyboard and mouse
Yeah.
input method. I think that that could be really really good for the gaming industry as a whole, so that we can see stuff that's less based around a controller. I made a survey and I posted the survey, and it had only two questions. I asked, this was a very, very selected sample of people who like Apple stuff, because I dropped this on the Apple subreddit. And I got some responses before they took it down for some reason and said that I couldn't ask those questions there. But the questions were: number one, do you play games? And let me just bring it over here so I can have it in front of me. It's the ugh, my brain stopped working. The biggest answer was yes, I play games on another device. So there's a lot of people whose primary device is a Mac, but they don't play games on it because it just doesn't work very well. That's 65% of the people who answered the question said yes, I play games on some other device. 20% roughly said yes, I play games on my Mac. So that's a very very small section of people. And then 7.7% said no, I don't play any games at all, which I found to be interesting. Then the second question that I asked is, are you interested in Google Stadia for Mac gaming? And 50% of the people who responded said, I'm interested, but will still also game in other ways. And then the next biggest piece of the pie here is 20% people who responded to this said, no, I'm fine with the games that are on the App Store natively. So there's a lot of people who have a Mac, and even if Stadia does bring these games to the Mac, there's going to be a certain section of people that are just like, no, I'm just going to buy stuff from the App Store. Do you think Stadia will be on the App Store?
I don't think so, because I don't think it's going to be. There's no client download. You just open up a web browser.
Right.
But
So it'll just be Chrome. Is
maybe
Chrome on
there'll
the App
be.
Store?
It is not. It is not on the App Store. I wait a second. No, I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I think you have to go right to Google's site to download Chrome on newer Macs.
Right. And then whenever you install something that's not on the App Store, like there's a workaround. And for
Mm,
somebody who's not technically savvy, that workaround, like it's a little scary, because it says, hey, you could screw up your computer by doing this, by
sure.
installing this thing that's not approved from our App Store, which I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing, because it warns people, look, you don't want to just install everything and anything that's out there, because it could compromise your system. So I don't blame Apple for putting that out there. I think it's a good thing. I like that you can still install stuff from a third party, but at the same time, it seems like they want to make sure that they are scaring people away from not buying things from the App Store, of course, because then Apple can't take a cut. Uh,
Yep.
yeah, I think that this is very interesting, and I think Mac gaming has a chance to finally be something that you can do without having to jump through too many hoops.
Sure.
You want to get back to the news?
Yeah, I just one last thought. Like the best part about Stadia is we're gonna get to a future where it's not PC gaming and it's not Mac gaming and it's not mobile gaming. It's just gaming. You
Mm.
have the same stream of your video game is available on your TV and your phone and your tablet and your Mac laptop and your PC desktop and your PC laptop. And every device that you use that has a web browser and an internet connection can be a receiver for this video data that's coming down. Especially if you buy the Google Stadia controller, then you don't even need to have a device that supports USB or anything. Like you could have a very low spec PC that just is receiving this YouTube video and play the game through your controller through Wi-Fi. It's gonna be pretty amazing once this is out for a little bit and people realize that literally any PC that you own that has a web browser can be a gaming PC. And I'm excited to see how many people take advantage of that.
Yeah, that's a really good point about getting the Google Stadia controller, because Apple has this history of getting rid of ports. Like they do
Hmm.
not like things to have an opening on the side of their devices. And like when they took away the floppy disk, everybody was aghast. And when they took away
Sure.
the optical media drive, everyone was like, "Oh my god." And
Yep.
then they got rid of the headphone jack, and people are still reeling from that. Honestly, I don't really care about that because I
That's
have Bluetooth headphones. Um,
right.
Eventually, Apple's going to find a way to get rid of the one and only port on the side of your computer, and you won't be able to plug in just whatever controller you have laying around. And when that happens, the Google Stadia controller will still work just fine, which is
Exactly.
great.
Yep.
All right, let's jump back over to the news.
Hey man, get portable. Get a Game Gear Supersonic Sports Pack. A color portable Game Gear, carrying case, and 2 hit games. Sonic 2, and the Majors Pro Baseball. Whoa, even save $50. The Game Gear Supersonic Sports Pack. You know who makes it.
Coffee? Tea?
All right, someone has created a input lag simulator. Now, a minute ago, I said, don't install stuff from just anywhere. So I did not install this. Did you install this?
No, I've been so swamped this week. It's on my list of things to download, and I just haven't gotten around to it. But I did watch a video of someone playing the game with the lag turned up to the normal like 50 milliseconds or whatever the recommended. This is what it's probably going to be to play on Stadia. Lag was, and it looked pretty decent. And a lot of people on Reddit basically said that it having 50 milliseconds lag really didn't affect them at all, which made me super happy to see.
50 milliseconds. I thought that Stadia
Or
was
or
a court.
200 maybe?
No, it was 166 was what
160.
Digital
There we go.
Foundry found.
That's the one.
Oh,
So
okay.
whatever
So
that millisecond was.
oh, okay. So they matched it, not 50. Okay. Well, that's awesome. I'm very interested if any of our listeners had tried this out. I'm not recommending that you try this out. I'm not recommending that you don't try this out. I'm just saying use your own judgment because it's a third party piece of software that you're installing on your computer. I'm sure that the person is completely on the up and up, but
Mhm.
I didn't install it because it makes me nervous. I don't want to wreck my computer. I have one computer, and this is the machine that I use to podcast and game and do just about everything on. I would be very unhappy if something happened to it because somebody didn't know what they were doing with the programming. But if you tried this out and you got the results, Lloyd and I would love to hear from you. And you can easily get a hold of us at StadiaCast on Twitter. Use that hashtag StadiaCast as well, because Lloyd and I search for that every Sunday before we start recording. Uh,
Mhm.
let's talk about Sundar Pichai.
Let the Radio Shack TRS-80 put the world of color computing into your home.
Sundar Pichai, he's the CEO of Google now after the duo that started it, um, after they decided to hand it off so that they could work on their own stuff. He's in charge now. He's the guy. I think he wears glasses. He gets up there in the front of every big press conference, and he's the face of Google these days, or I suppose the Alphabet company. And he was talking about game publishers, and this kind of calls back to what what Bobby Kotick was saying. Sundar Pichai said, "It's up to us to bring it all together and have a compelling service later this year." I love that they're still saying later this year. And
Mhm.
that's what the team is working on. They want to see our commitment, which is what we are demonstrating, and they are working hard to make the investments on their side. He's talking about developers. He said, so it's a big joint effort and it's working well. I love this quote because it makes it seem like they have a lot of developers that are working behind the scenes. It's not just Ubisoft and it's not just
Yep.
Activision. They've got a lot of people working on games for Stadia, and I definitely think we will hear more about it on Tuesday. And come June for E3, it's going to, I think that they still haven't said that they'll be there, but I
Mhm.
think that we are in for a treat. For if you are a fan of Google Stadia, I think E3 is going to be a big deal. What do you think about this quote, Lloyd?
I think it's really good. It was a kind of an interesting discussion that happened at Google's earning call for the Alphabet company. And that was a really great quote. There was also with Stadia, you'll be able to play advanced AAA games on any type of screen instantly without ever needing to download the game or install updates. And the reception from gamers in the industry has been incredible, and I look forward to sharing more when it launches later this year. Like that quote to me is exactly the elevator pitch for Stadia. It's like, hey, buddy, how would you like to play the most recent AAA games on your PC just through a web browser? You don't have to install any crazy drivers. Like that's the key elevator pitch for a service like this. And the fact that they recognize that, and also that developers obviously recognize that, because there's a lot of development kits going out, and there's a lot of studios that are working on games for Stadia, make me really excited for launch. I don't think it's just going to be a collection of like Google phone games that have been ported to Stadia. I think we're going to get some really meaty content, all the way down to um, some major AAA games are talking about, like, we're releasing on Xbox One and releasing on PS4, but we're also releasing on other platforms. And it's like, well, what is that? It's they've never made a PC game before, so what could these other platforms be? Maybe the Nintendo Switch and maybe the Google Stadia. So I don't know, man. E3, I'm always excited as we make our way towards E3. But this year, I think I'm cranked up just a little bit more because we this is the first time we've had this unknown of a Google platform involved with E3, and I'm salivating at the thought of what could come.
Even though they have not yet said that they are going to be at E3,
Yeah.
I believe Sundar Pichai said that you can, or no, it was Phil Harrison. Phil Harrison said you can expect two more presentations about Google Stadia before summer. So obviously,
Yep.
one is the one that's happening this week, and make sure that you guys tune in to episode 8 of StadiaCast, because we're definitely going to be picking apart what they talk about at Google I/O this week.
Yep.
And then, do you think that it's going to be like he said, two before summer? When he says before summer, that makes me think that we like before E3. But I guess when is E3? It's the beginning of June.
That's right.
So summer begins June 21st. So E3 is before summer, right?
Yeah. So when does E3 start? I think it's the 10th. Um, I'm just trying to bring up the actual date.
Yeah,
So
I think it's
E3,
got to be. I think it has to be E3. It's not something before E3.
yeah,
It's
June 11th.
June 11th. Okay. So technically that is before summer because
Hmm.
summer doesn't start until June 21st. So it seems just painfully obvious. Now, does Google have any floor space? We have no idea. They could have pretended not to have floor space, and when the map for E3 came out, it's tough to tell what's going on.
Yep.
They're being very cagey about it, but this week is going to be huge. Next episode of StadiaCast is going to be massive, and then we've got the E3 coming, and whether or not Google does anything there, it's got to happen before September 21st, or I'm sorry, before June 21st, because they said two things before summer. I'm very
Mhm.
excited. Let's talk feedback. We got a tweet from Anthony Talcott. He asks, where do you guys stand on game ownership? If Google came out with a pay X amount and you can choose up to 3 games at a time, I'll be more than happy. If Google wants me to pay $10 a month to rent games, then I would be saving money in the long run. How do you feel about that? Do you think that you're okay with renting games and not owning them at all, Lloyd?
I think so. As I move forward in life, I used to have a big CD collection, and anytime a new favorite song would come out, I'd go buy the album, and I'd put it into my collection, and I'd make mix CDs and all this stuff. And then iTunes came out, and I was like, you know what? I could just rip all these CDs, put them on my big drive, and then I never have to worry about swapping CDs anymore. And then now I don't even bother with that. Like I pay for Spotify, and I get my music that way. And the same thing happened with Netflix. Big collector of DVDs and VHSs before then, but now I buy my movies on iTunes and I stream all the stuff that I haven't bought on Netflix and Prime Video and things like that. I've gone away from the I own this media to I have access to this media. And if games went that way, I'd be okay with it for PC gaming. I think my Nintendo Switch, I like all these little boxes behind me, and physical games on a console. I think I'm still going to want to do. But for streaming stuff through Google Stadia, I'm okay if I don't actually own the games, similar to like a PlayStation Plus, where you can download games and they're just digital versions and they go away when you're not paying for it anymore. I'm perfectly okay with that.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I'm probably even more so than you not against, but like I don't care about owning the thing because generally when I finish a game, well, okay, if I finish a game, because that happens very rarely. But generally, when I'm done with a game, I almost never go back to it. It has to be something incredibly special for me to go back to a game after I've already played it, outside of something that's like a retro thing from when I was a kid. That kind of thing I go back to all the time. But if when I finished Super Mario Odyssey on my Nintendo Switch, I had a blast with that game. I haven't touched it since. And if I had just had a subscription to Nintendo and had access to that game, then I would have had exactly the same experience that I ended up having. I would have played it a bunch and then probably never touched it again. That wouldn't be the same because we have a physical version. Like my son borrows that. Like he still plays it. That would have been a different experience for him. And that would, like, I totally get how that would impact him. And Vaxer in chat is saying, if I could, I would always get a physical copy of the game. And there's going to be a lot of people like that out there. And there is going to be
Definitely.
absolutely 100% no physical copy of Stadia games. You can't go to the store. And this might be a topic that we want to talk about later on. Do we think that that is going to affect, hinder Stadia at all? The fact that they don't have shelf space in in GameStop. You've got your Xbox games, you got your Switch games, you got your PlayStation games, and nowhere to be seen is Google Stadia. Like you can't see that stuff there. Maybe GameStop will sell a controller. Maybe you might be able to buy a controller there. But honestly, if you were GameStop, would you want to sell a controller for Stadia? I don't know. So
Yeah.
that's definitely a topic for another day on whether or not we should, or whether or not that's going to impact Stadia as a whole. But Lloyd and I spent a long time talking about this on a previous episode, and I didn't look it up to see what episode it was, Anthony. So I'm very sorry about that. But go back and listen to our other episodes. We talked a lot about game ownership and
Mhm.
how Stadia will impact this on a previous episode.
Yeah, and you got to look at probably the biggest game marketplace in the world, Steam. You don't own those games technically. You have to have the Steam client running to play them. So if Steam goes away tomorrow and takes all their games with them, you've bought a license to play these games, which you won't really have the right to play anymore because the servers aren't running to authenticate that service. Hopefully, they would release an update that makes all the games DRM free, yada yada yada. But essentially, that's what Google Stadia will be doing. You have a library of games, but you don't technically own them. You have a license to play them for a set period of time.
That's right. Anthony also tweeted in again. Thank you very much for the interaction, Anthony. They said at StadiaCast, if Google really is trying to be the Netflix of gaming, do you think we'll see do you think we'll see different price tiers for multiple devices like Netflix? I.e., if you want a game on more than one device, pay X amount. So this is for the Netflix thing. I feel like that's more along the lines of like a family pass, because with Netflix, it's not that I can watch it on only one device, it's that I can watch it on only one device at a time.
Right.
So I can watch Netflix on any device I want, even if I only have one, like the cheapest tier. I can watch it on any device I want. But if somebody else in my house wants to watch a show at the same time as me, then we have to have the higher tier. And do I think that Google is going to do price tiers like that? If it's a if it turns out to be a subscription service where you subscribe to Google Stadia and you end up, getting like if it's a subscription service, then yes, I'm sure that they will have like a family option, just like
Mhm.
they do for YouTube Premium. Like right now, I subscribe to YouTube Premium because my wife and I like to watch Cobra Kai. We have Google
Mhm.
devices in the house, and we use YouTube Music to listen to music. So we have like the family plan for that, and it just means that I can invite other people in my family to be members of the family. I think it's up to 6, and I'm sure that Google Stadia will also have a similar plan like that. What do you think, Lloyd?
Yeah, I think so. Like, we don't really know what the plan is from Google, whether they're going to have just you're buying the games or whether you're just buying a streaming service or whether there's going to be some weird combination of the two. I would assume that it would be some weird combination of the two, but we don't know yet. If they do just have a streaming service or a streaming service is part of their plan, then yeah, I definitely think that having a family plan would have to be there. Because if I want to buy the Call of Duty game that we just announced earlier that's going to have 500 players online. You heard it here first. If I'm going to want to play that with other people in my family, they're going to need logins as well because your profile would be stored on your Google profile. So we'd have to link their Google profiles to my family account and go from there. But it'll be interesting. All this stuff will shake out over the next little bit. Like what are you really buying if you buy a game, or what are you really getting when you get access to a streaming service? We don't really know. We can make some educated guesses, but Google sometimes does some weird things, so you're never really 100% sure.
Something else to keep in mind is, how is it going to work if you buy a copy of the game? Does everyone in your family have access to that game, or can they only one person play at a time? So, for example, on the Nintendo Switch, if I get a copy of a game and I buy it digitally, then I can play it, and that's it.
Yep.
Nobody else can play it. However, if I buy a game on my PS4 and I buy it digitally, both my son, who has his own PS4, and I can both play the game. And not only can we both play the game, we can both play the game at the same time. And that is going to be a very, very important thing. How does family sharing work? Because on Apple, when I buy an app, everybody on my with few exception, everybody on my family plan through my Apple device, they all get access to that app too. Now there are restrictions, like Nintendo restricted the way that they did Super Mario Run. So if
Yep.
you bought Super Mario Run, well, no, you get Super Mario Run for free. So everyone gets it for free, but then it was DLC, and DLC is not on the family plan. So if I buy it for the DLC, which unlocks the full game, and my son wants to play that, then I have to buy the DLC a second time. So it's very, very interesting. Which way do you think we'll end up going there, Lloyd?
I don't know. I mean, I think Google is usually pretty open about things. So I would see that they would want to push for being more open. Like if I buy a copy of a game, everybody in my family plan, assume that family plans exist and you can have a bunch of people in them. Everybody would get access to that. Um, but developers maybe won't want that and there'll be some pushback. I know for Steam, like you can do a library sharing with Steam, but you both can't play the same game at the same time, I believe. It's been a
That's
long
true.
time since I've looked into that. So that's been the kind of the standard in the PC industry for a while. So I don't know, it could really go both ways, which um, really makes it hard to talk about this early on in the process.
Right. And right now, it seems like the only ones that are doing what I think a lot of people would want is Sony, where
Mhm.
if you've got multiple devices, everybody who's tied to that account can play it. But that's not often that I can say something nice about the way that Sony conducts its business. But and I say that as somebody who's got a PS4 Pro sitting next to him. Um, We've got one more, well, a series of tweets, but I actually think because we're coming up on an hour that we're going to have to go ahead and skip that for next time, just because we don't want to go too long. Lawworthy,
Sounds good.
thank you very much for tweeting into us, though. He was responding to something from last episode. So, Lloyd, it's time for us to get on out of here. Where can people follow our stuff?
Well, you can follow everything Google Stadia over at StadiaCast on YouTube. So youtube.com/StadiaCast. You can check it out there, and also at anchor.fm/StadiaCast. If you like what I talk about, if you like my voice for some strange reason, you can listen to all the podcasts that I do over at Res TV and on Twitter at Dasme, DASME.
And you can find my stuff over at runjumpstomp.com or on Twitter at runjumpstomp. When you are shouting at us on Twitter, make sure you use that hashtag StadiaCast for so that we can find your tweets. We'd also like to thank the unofficial Discord server of the official Stadia subreddit for letting people know about our show, which you can check out over at bit.ly/Stadia Discord. Music for this episode and for all episodes is Subterranean Kamikaze by Zircon. Make sure to check out their stuff over at zirconstudios.bandcamp.com. Lloyd, I'll see you next week.
Have a good one, everybody.
Bye bye.